Day 43 of becoming a SOC Analyst. Today we're investigating a critical CVE on Microsoft SharePoint. Let's take a look. So we've got the alert triggered by CVE-2023-29357. Vulnerability which could potentially lead to unauthorized access of privilege escalation within the SharePoint server. It has been allowed, and we've got the IPs, so let's jump in, see what we can figure out. So firstly, I've googled the CVE. You see that it's a SharePoint CVE that allows administrator level privileges without any prior authentication. It abuses JWT authentication tokens, and in the proof of concept here, we have someone has shared on Twitter what a failed exploit attempt looks like. So we've got a response of 401 from the SharePoint server, so that's going to be something to keep in mind if we're looking to see whether it was successful or not. The log is multiple GET requests that were made to different UPIs under _API /web/site users. Okay. Resulted in 401 unauthorized response. So that's what we're looking for if it's going to be denied, and I guess we'll see what we can find in the logs. So if we pull up the alert, we've got the source IP, and let's have a look what we can see in the log. Okay, so we can see 3 requests. Let's have a look at the raw data. So permitted to the site _API /website users, which we know is the API endpoint that is vulnerable. 404 was the response for that. API web current user, we have a 200 response, so that was successful. And again to the web users a GET, and 200 successful. So looking at the write-up on the CVE, we're given their example of what a denied response would be, which would be the 401 unauthorized, but we're clearly seeing in the logs to that API endpoint that it was permitted, and the 200 response was successful. So it means the server responded. Alright, let's look at the IP to see if it's malicious. So it's Chinese, located in China, I should say. And it's been flagged malicious 3 times. And get in the habit of also checking abuse IP database, and that's been reported quite a lot. I like this website because it has the historical reporting. IP banned by failed to ban, banned in jail SSH. Looks like it's been scanning SSH ports, attempting brute force. Alright, so it's definitely a malicious IP anyway. If we look at the endpoint, It was SharePoint. Okay, MS SharePoint server. Okay, some of the labs we have access to look at the logs. You can actually log into the machines. On this one we don't. We've got no terminal history, we've got no browser history. Have a quick scan of the processes. But this particular CVE is all about allowing access to the API with elevated privileges, not so much getting a shell. So we're going to contain the machine because of those logs that we saw. Pretty confident that we could start the playbook. Okay, I understand why it was triggered, so we understand the CVE. Collect the data, so we've looked at the IP, we've determined where geolocated. Okay, examine the traffic, we've checked the logs, we've seen the 3 GET requests. Is it malicious? Yes. So we're going to go for other. Check if it was a planned test. No. Format source to destination, so it was external. Check whether it was successful. Okay, so that's what we're going with. The yeah, looking at the HTTP response size for SQL injection or IDOR attacks. What else does it suggest? For SQL, look for. Alright, so it's not applicable for our particular case. We're going to say it was successful based on the 200 response and the article on the CVE giving us an example failure log, and it was pretty clear that it would be a 401 response, which is, we weren't seeing that. That's my main justification, because we can't check on the endpoint what version it's running, you know, is our SharePoint patched. So we're going to have to make an educated guess on that one. Where is our ticket? So was it successful? Yes. Containment, we already have click contain, and add our artifacts. So we had the malicious IP. Let's log that in. Okay, do we need to escalate? Yes, because the server in this instance we would say is vulnerable, so it would need to be patched. And what I'll do is I'll record the I'll pause the recording, I'll write up my notes, I'll see you in a second. Okay, so for my logs, I've mapped it to the MITRE technique. Exploit public facing application, exploitation of privilege escalation, and then tried to log it in the 5W technique. What I might mention here is that with Let's Defend, I have some trouble with my logs. Although I'm not hitting the character count, it constantly complains about line count. It won't let you submit the log if you do too many lines, but I really like spacing my logs out. Anyway, just thought I'd mention it. It is an issue. You can't use enter too many times. So who, an external IP address, 39 dot, geolocated in China, initiated HTTP requests against the SharePoint server, ms-SharePoint server, and the internal IP. The what? The source IP sent crafted HTTP GET requests to SharePoint API endpoints, including _API/web current user, using a scripted user agent, Python requests. The request returned HTTP 200, indicating successful interaction with the API endpoint, consistent with the exploitation of the CVE CVE-2023-29357 authentication bypass. When, we've got the timestamp, the where, the source IP, the 39 IP address, the destination, the internal 172 IP, hostname ms-SharePoint server, the endpoint was the /_API/web/current user, why, CVE allows authentication bypass and privileged escalation in Microsoft SharePoint. The successful 200 response in the scripted API request suggests unauthorized access to the SharePoint user information. The activity pattern and user agent indicate automated exploitation rather than legitimate user activity. The response, true positive, contained, escalated, confirm patch status. So let's put that in. And I thought when I was writing up my notes it was important to note that the header of the, if we've still got the log open, the header of the client making the GET request was Python requests, indicating that, yeah, most likely it was an automated tool scanning. Alright, where is our ticket? Let's close it. True positive. Paste in our notes again. Close the alert. And let's see how we went. Alright, fantastic. So, got everything correct. True positive. It needs to escalate. It was a successful attack. The direction of traffic. Checking if it was planned. What is their attack type? And is the traffic malicious? So, everything was categorized correctly in the playbook. And that's great. So today we investigated a SharePoint alert which was related to a known critical CVE. A successful 200 response to an API endpoint was enough to confirm the exploitation, and basically we think that should reinforce our learning that a single response is enough to sort of indicate or confirm compromise when dealing with critical vulnerabilities. Alright, see you on day 44 of becoming a SOC analyst.